Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell.
And I'm Oishi.
In our show tonight, we'll cover the ThinkTech Newsmorphosis Redux program that we presented at the Plaza Club in late August.
It had two panels of VIP news professionals representing TV, radio, the newspaper, and online news and social media, comparing notes on how the media has been doing since the closing of the Honolulu Advertiser and Star Bulletin.
The first panel, moderated by Steve Petranik of Hawaii Business Magazine, dealt with whether the reporting and commentary by Hawaii's news media is properly reaching and informing the public. The panelists were Chris Conybeare of the Hawaii Media Council, Jim Dooley of Hawaii Reporter, Barbara Tanabe of Hoakea Communications, Kyle Tanouye of Talisman LBS, and Lucy Young-Oda of the Star Advertiser.
I tell you these stories to make a couple of points. One, the local news media is not a single thing. Remember, media is a plural noun. Media, many things. And there are lots of different news media in town, and each does its job differently. And, you know, from my personal opinion, some do it better than others. And my perspective from working 25 years in Hawaii's news media is sometimes we do a lousy job, and sometimes we do a great job. And sometimes people pay attention, and sometimes they don't. The question is, for this panel, is where along that continuum Hawaii's new media belong? Good job, bad job, somewhere in between? Some of us will talk about individual media. And the second part of it is, are we delivering the news in the way people want it delivered? Because it makes no sense to run these stories if nobody's reading it.
The question that I was told to answer today is the news media properly reaching and informing the public? Now, there are different ways to respond to this, and so I'll try to do it within 5 minutes. Because you're going to be hearing from many different experts, I'd like to look simply at the things that I have observed, first as a working journalist, and then now as a public affairs professional. Now, when I started in 1970, 40 years ago, many of you weren't even born, the newest news medium was television over print, and that's why I chose television. At that time, because broadcasters used what's called a scarce public resource, the radio frequencies, the Federal Communications Commission required broadcasters to present controversial issues of great public importance in an honest, equitable, and balanced manner. That was called the Fairness Doctrine, which remained on the books until this past Monday, even though it had not been enforced since 1987. Now, the Fairness Doctrine meant that all broadcasters have to devote airtime to discuss issues in news programs, public affairs shows, or editorials. The point was to bring diversity of views over the airways.
When the Honolulu Star Bulletin and the Honolulu Advertiser merged in June of last year, it was a hectic and a very tense time for all of us. There was no joy among any of us journalists in seeing so many of our colleagues and friends out of jobs that really were more than jobs for us, you know. The newspaper's mergers retained virtually all of the Star Bulletin staff, company-wide. But of the Advertiser newsroom, only about 30 employees were hired, and that's a very small fraction of the talent pool. The loss of competition between the two daily newspapers was then and continues to be very painful for us as journalists and for the community at large. You know, for this panel, both Steve and Jay were trying to hammer home the point of getting one word to capture the essence of my thoughts for the panel today. And, you know, there's so many that came to mind. You know, diversity, responsibility, ideas, information, evolving, imperfect. But ultimately, I did settle on one, and it was just too obvious, but it just kept on rising to the top of my mind, and that is credibility. Because credibility really is at the core of what we do at the Star Advertiser, and I know that's true for every other daily newspaper and news organization in the country.
Word that would sum up what we were talking about. And in the spirit of people that thought up the name Newsmorphosis, my word is monopoly-awfulous. Awful monopoly forces are at work in our community. We've heard about some of those. Concentration of ownership and control over our news media has resulted in layoffs. That's fewer people to collect, analyze, and distribute information. We've lost independent editorial voices, the closing of one major TV newsroom, the closing of one major print newsroom. In short, less is less. As we've heard, and I believe we all agree, democracy requires that people vote, and to vote they need to be informed. Since we have a diverse society, we're better served by diversity of viewpoints. And with the shuttering of two major newsrooms, we've lost some of that diversity. We're also concerned, as the Media Council, in the sort of the partnership between the monopoly newspaper and one of the monopoly broadcasters. And we're concerned that this could lead down the road to even more homogenization of news and lack of diversity.
I used to write lots of stories about government procurement and lots of really good stories, and nothing really much seemed to change until I did a couple of stories for the Advertiser about how the head of Aloha Stadium had gotten new carpets and new furniture in his office by parceling out the contract, and and so instead of putting it out to bid, he picked his own people to do this, and his friends and and relatives, and got all this new furniture. And I don't know why, but that those stories really, I think it was sort of an accretion process there. I'd been doing all these stories and kind of went over the top at that point, and people went crazy. The legislature had investigations, and they passed laws, and and look where we are now. We're still doing procurement stories, but and another thing I was struck by the previous speakers was the reference that Steve made to Sean Howe. Well, Sean Howe's not a reporter anymore. He's gone. He was a great reporter, and he's gone. He's working for the auditor's office. And I was talking to Barbara earlier, and I think there's way more former reporters now doing public relations than there are actual reporters.
Again, it's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon. And I was asked actually to put together a short talk. Those that you know me, it's probably impossible, on how technology affects what's happening in the world of information. So I took a personal perspective, and just for those of you that don't know me, on the geek scale, I'm probably just a couple notches toward the geek level. So it is my personal perspective here, and I'll try to share with you my personal experiences. Oh. Sorry, there's a lot of clicks through my presentation. So I was asked to put together one word, and I took like 5 hours to come up with it. And I had to come up with evolution. That's what I came up with. And I listed several definitions up here. And so the first was any process of formation or growth or development, a process of gradual, peaceful, progressive change or development, change in the gene pool, this is interesting, of population or generations to generations by such process as mutation, natural selection, and genetic drift. Okay, so that's the premise I came up with.
The second panel, moderated by David Tumilowicz of Hawaii Business Magazine, dealt with how changes in consumer preferences, technology, and costs are likely to further transform the news media in the coming years. The panelists were Kevin Bumgarner of Pacific Business News, Rick Blangiardi of Hawaii News Now, Jeff Coelho of Salem Communications, John Temple of Civil Beat, and Leslie Wilcox of PBS.
I'd like to start the conversation with Rick and picking up that argument that literally there is no future for local news online. And perhaps if I can share a little bit from my perspective, I mean, we can look at this argument in two ways, right? There's a revenue side. Is there revenue online to be had? And we can look at it from another perspective, an expense side. And I think John Temple's going to help us maybe understand the expense side a little bit better. For Hawaii Business, and I just went through and looked at recent numbers, an online eyeball, so a unique viewer, is worth to me in advertising revenue 1/200th what I get in advertising revenue for a print subscriber. That's a big gap. I think, Rick, you probably experienced something similar. Can you kick us off here? It's a pretty huge gap to try to envision that we're going to have an online future for local news.
Yeah, but thank you, David. The phenomena in the middle, though, between the revenue and expenses is the behavioral, and that is a lot of people are going to not just our website, but other websites for information. And that behavior is so far out in front of any kind of business model that it's challenging, because our core business still drives what we do as an operation. The ratio is probably about 25 to 1 from the standpoint of dollars. Our core business is okay. The potential, though, for online is great. So even if you doubted it, you wouldn't walk away from it, because the numbers just are growing exponentially. And particularly in a major breaking news situation, you know, the night of the tsunami, we had over 3 million people worldwide watching us. We were streaming. I mean, that's phenomenal numbers, and even our monthly numbers on regular news gathering. So I want to believe very much in the future of that. I don't know when it's going to get here. I'm getting up there in years. I don't think I'm going to be alive. But we're going to hang in there with it because of the behavioral aspects.
One of the things that Chris had brought up in his discussion was that more and more people prefer to get their news online. I think you're referring to that as well. And I think the number is something like 18% of people national statistic, consume their local news online. And, you know, it's obviously a much higher figure for newspaper, for television, and so forth. But the point to be made maybe about that 18% is they're consuming the newspaper's content online, or the network's content online for the most part. They're not consuming an online-only source, you know, in that 18% number at least. Do you foresee a point in the future, maybe, Rick, where you do make that transition entirely online, and you're no longer over the airwaves, and what does that look like?
I don't see that. In fact, one thing that's of interest to me and our team is that our numbers in our television operation continue to grow. Viewership of television is up and alive and well. We're not going to, no. Actually, what we're trying to do is we're really trying to evolve into a multimedia company in our distribution. So we no longer think of ourselves just simply in television. We are pushing online and certainly mobile. And our mobile numbers are growing even greater than that. But there is no business model to that at this point, not only here in Hawaii, but anywhere. But the usage is unbelievable. You know, we just saw a thing from Google yesterday or the day before. Mobile has doubled, 100% increase in the last 2 years. You know, and the numbers are pretty staggering. Even I have an iPhone, which is like, I don't even believe I have an iPhone. You know, so we look at that and we say, this is content distribution. We want to be relevant. That was the word that I chose. We know we need to be in more than one platform because of how people behave and where they get their information from. And I could have brought a lot of statistics. I think it would only be confusing. I can just simply tell you that I think people consuming news today, and I watch the hands being raised here more and more, and they're getting it in different ways than they ever got it before. And for us, we want to be there. We want to be relevant on all those platforms. We want to be worthwhile.
Okay.
If I could just add a couple points
Sure.
here, you know, from the radio standpoint, I've seen it really change. I mean, my first job doing radios, we actually used records and needles and things like that. Today, we don't even have them in the building. You know, today I listen to the radio on my iPad. I got 10,000 radio stations from around the world. Our stations stream, and we use the technology to actually split the breaks. So if you're listening to a radio station on your regular radio in your car, you're going to hear the commercials that people are buying for our broadcast signal. But if you listen to us on a stream, you're going to get a separate commercial that actually plays. And I will tell you, echoing your cost analysis, I can sell my radio, traditional radio advertising for 100 times in the actual unit cost compared to what I can sell the streaming ad, even though 15 to 17% of my listenership now streams one of my radio stations at some time or another during the month. So from the standpoint of, you know, am I going to see the streaming online side for radio become profitable in my career? Hopefully not. I'm going to be with my grandkids by the end of the year, so I'm going to beat you to it, Rick.
And this, you know, I mean, truth be told, this is not a new topic to the extent that, you know, and people have been talking about 10 cents on the dollar, you know, but I guess maybe what is new is that 10 cents isn't materializing. And in fact, the trend's going the other direction, where the CPM for radio, or I'm sorry, for online advertising is actually declining. You can look at a lot of the major advertising agencies here in Hawaii, and they'll tell you they're not going to pay more than $5 CPM
Well, and
and do all network advertising.
I would absolutely agree with you. If I had to rely on that component for the keyword of the day, okay, and I'm going to give you what I think the keyword of the day is. We can all want better news, we can all want better content, we can all want better credibility, but ultimately, and some of us in this room are not going to like my keyword, but I'm going to tell you, I've had to live with it for 45 years, even when I was an owner, and that keyword is profitability. And if you are not profitable, you are not going to have the means to get the news out. And as a person in charge of a radio station that I inherited that was losing $625,000 a year, my directive from my owners was not, Jeff, improve the news. It was, Jeff, make it profitable or we'll sell it. I'm happy to report that this year we're going to turn a profit of $500,000. And guess what? We can now serve the community better. So we as broadcasters, we as operators, we as owners have a huge responsibility of maintaining, or at least trying to find, the mechanism that we can take the product and make it profitable.
Okay, terrific. John, I'd like to involve you in the conversation. My guess is that you're betting that there is an online future for local news.
I think that's a safe guess based on my talk here last year. It's great to be back with this group, and my word was uncertainty, because I think we're in this uncertain period. And the only thing I want to point out is we're always hearing this expense side and revenue. We're hearing this revenue issue, the concern about revenue. But what we're not hearing is about expense. And the reality is what you're able to do today with minimal resources is so incredible. And that's why the creative destruction, what we actually have up here is largely established media concerned about the disruption of their businesses, right? Because online is still a threat.
Thanks so much to everyone who participated. We think it's very important and healthy that representatives of the media get together for public discussions like this, and we hope to organize similar programs in the future.
If you want to see the full video of the whole Newsmorphosis program, check out ThinkTechHawaii.com.
On September 22nd, we'll present a luncheon panel program called Impact Investing, dealing with socially responsible investing and the new B Corporation vehicle, which Hawaii has adopted to make that possible.
On October 20th, we'll have our ThinkTech annual reunion, where all of our hosts, guests, experts, thinkers, and friends get together to say hi to each other and compare notes. It'll be at the Plaza Club at 5:30 p.m. Thursday, October 20th.
On October 27th, we'll present a luncheon panel program called Update on Agriculture 2011, featuring State Agriculture Director Russell Kokoban, to get us current on developments in diversified agriculture in Hawaii. To sign up for all these programs, visit hvca.org or thinktechhawaii.com.
And now, here's Bill Spencer with this week's Spensation.
It's time we reminded folks what a treasure trove of videos and content is on ThinkTech. So please visit thinktechhawaii.com.
Thank you, Bill. That's great. We do have a lot, and we have a lot more coming. We have a lot in the pipeline. But I think we should point out that in October, we're going to start radio again. We've been doing radio on Saturdays with a 1-hour show, 2 to 3, but we're expanding that now. Starting in October, we're going to do drive time radio on KGU 760 AM Monday through Friday. Monday, this is 4 to 5 p.m. Monday, we'll do business and law. Tuesday, we'll do Asia and the Bridge to Asia in Review shows on a regular basis. Wednesday, we'll do tech and energy. I'll do that part. Thursday, we'll do the arts. And Friday, we'll do government and politics. And we have great hosts for all this. We have a lineup of guests that are really great because we have a terrific, Rolodex. We have a Rolodex that was based on the ThinkTech radio show back through, from 2001 to 2008. Well, most of those people are still around.
Right.
A lot of them are even in better condition now than they were then. And they're interested. They're going to participate. It's going to be something else. We are going to revisit and update and expand those activities. It'll be a very interesting experience to do that. And all of this is going to be the focus of our reunion. Can we talk about that?
Sure. October 20th, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're inviting our guests, our thinkers, our hosts and friends come down to the Plaza Club for a really terrific reunion. It's almost, it's 12 years now since we started, and it'll be a really terrific experience. So if you are of a mind to meet some of our hosts and thinkers and guests and friends, come on down at 5:30 on Thursday, October 20th. It's a cocktail party kind of setting. It's a, after work kind of setting, and we'll reunite. We'll network up a storm.
And ignite.
And ignite too, yeah. So we did this last year. It was really terrific. You remember, but this year it'll be better.
Well, you've got a lot to be proud of. You've got programs on Olelo, OC16 5 times a week, and now 5 times a week live on KGU 760 AM.
Yeah.
At drive time.
Yeah.
So what better but to tune in to ThinkTech Hawaii all over the place.
We're gonna tell you the truth about what's going on. We're gonna try to make you aware of developments in technology and energy, diversification, your favorite subject.
That's right.
And of course globalism, which Hawaii has to get on the bandwagon about that. Wake up with APEC and whatnot. So this is going to be an expansion of our activities. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Well, congratulations, Jay. You've done a lot to contribute to the community, to get the diversification message out, and to motivate people to think tech.
Yeah, Bill. Thanks for all your help. We could never have done any of this without your help.
I doubt that.
Thanks a lot. And here's this week's episode about the adventures of our co-working entrepreneurs, Richung Fujihira, Hassan Scott, and Tony Stanford. Won't be long before we hit the end of the calendar year. Your first year in the box jelly.
First year in the box jelly.
So how are things doing? What has happened? Tell me about your latest daredevil achievements.
Well, this past week we've had we hosted a get-together of sorts with the web developers and designers alike to hold talks, and it was a way for us to give back. On Tuesday last week, we also held a meeting with High Capacity, and we're having an ever-growing relationship with them. We're also helping to develop their business model outside of our space. Mm-hmm. To continue on Wednesday, we really look to get back to our roots, where we came from, and where that is the Hogan program. And the Hogan program had the first event this year. And they had a barbecue hosted out in Lanikai, out of Miss Cooper's.
Cliff Cooper was my mentor, and basically during the Cold War and the space race, the Soviets had the Sputnik, and he, with no prior knowledge of rocketry or anything, just an entrepreneurial spirit, he was able to put us back in the race, shoot a rocket out.
Also, we to move forward, on Friday we went to a startup event that was hosted by Simple Honey, was it?
Yes, it's Simple Honey, and it was a tweet up. So basically, they're a startup that's based out of Silicon Valley, but they're incubating their business out in Hawaii for 2 months. It's a travel-related tech startup. So it's just great to be able to meet, people who are really doing things, and they're able to come back to their roots. So it was a great event to be able to interact with them.
Well, you guys are doing amazing networking. You're connecting up, you're building alliances. Tell me how that all relates and how it is relating to developing the core business on Kamani Street.
Definitely. Well, one thing that's new that we are developing with these connections is we're doing a EIR program, so Entrepreneurs in Residence. So Box Jelly members and the greater community can come into our space and get advice from entrepreneurs that have done things. And I think this is really important for the startup community out here to really be able to have this interaction in this building. So we really see ourselves as becoming a connector types of people.
It was one of our greatest strengths that gave us the courage to go out and do what we did so far. And so we felt the need to be able to pass that along.
Place to work,
Place to meet,
place to build.
work the way you live.
Box Jelly.
You always say that. It's okay.
Wait,
It has
it's a
ring about
tagline.
it.
We're trying to,
Tagline. We're trying to make sure everybody understands.
yeah, it's cheesy, but it works, right?
Yeah.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Miko on Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Polymers, a tech company in Hawaii.
Oceanet, another local tech company, is one of Hawaii's largest and most diversified science and engineering companies.
Don't forget ThinkTech. We're funded by gifts and grants from people like you. Please help us out by making a contribution on thinktechhawaii.com. Thank you so much. Okay, Duke, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Duke does, and all of our other hosts too. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
You bet, Jay. For lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Jay Fidell. Thanks for joining us on ThinkTech.
And I'm Duke Oishi. Aloha, everyone.